Let's start this week with a question. Have you ever sat down to update your resume, looked at everything you've done in the last 10, 15, 20 years, and thought, why is this so much harder than it used to be? Not harder because you don't know what you've done, harder because somehow it feels way too overwhelming. Like the words aren't big enough anymore, like the format's too small for the responsibility you've actually carried. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something up front. It is not you. There's nothing wrong with you. And it's not a motivation problem. It's not a creative writing problem. It's not really even a resume problem. It's a perspective shift most people are never really told is coming. Here's the big deal we're working with this week. At mid career, resume writing gets harder not because you lack accomplishments or lack resume writing skill sets, but because your work has started to matter in a different way. Early in your career, values about execution. Can you do the work? Can you deliver? Can you be relied on? So resumes are built around tasks, what you owned, what you shipped, what you managed, and that works for a while. But at some point, usually quietly, the expectations shift. Now your value lives in judgment, leverage, outcomes, what you protected, what changed because you were there. The problem? No one ever sits you down and says, hey, from here on out, you're being evaluated differently. It just happens. So people keep describing their work the same way, even as the game changes. That's when resume writing starts to feel really frustrating, emotional, and just oddly exhausting. This pattern didn't come from any theory for me. It came from listening to smart, capable, deeply experienced people say things like, I have no idea how my work contributed to the organization's big picture. No one ever talked to me about that. It wasn't even discussed. And that line stops me every single time because these aren't disengaged people. These aren't people who are coasting. These are people who've been carrying real responsibility for years, but they were rewarded for doing, not for naming outcomes. So when it's time to write a resume or preparing for interviews, they're suddenly expected to translate their work into business impact without ever having been taught how to do it. And once I really understood that, the work that I did and the approach that I took with clients really changed. We stopped trying to improve resumes and we started trying to change the vantage point entirely. Let me give you an example. I'll keep it really simple. A client walked me through a project they had led. On the surface, the story sounded really solid. They delivered on time, they managed dependencies, they executed against the plan. Everything was on time and under budget. All good, all true. But everything really stopped at activity. So I asked a different set of questions. What was the business trying to protect or improve at the time? What was the customer really trying to accomplish with the implementation? What pressure existed if this project didn't go through? What benefited when the project went right? And at first, the answers were really tentative. But then, we kept probing, something really clicked. They realized timelines protected revenue recognition, process clarity reduced rework across teams, leadership trust increased because decisions were backed by cleaner data and information. Same work, same role, same experience, but now it was connected to outcomes the business actually cared about. The resume didn't get louder, it got clearer. If anything, it got shorter. And that's the difference between execution language and leadership language. One of the most helpful tools I use here is something I shared in Wednesday Substack, what I call the big buckets of business results, mainly because I just like alliteration. But when people feel stuck, it's really because they don't have impact. It's because they don't know where to place it. Most business outcomes fall into a few predictable categories: financial performance, operational efficiency, risk reduction and stability, customer impact, growth and market position, people and team performance, and decision quality and visibility. Hiring managers may not name all these explicitly, and your manager might not name all of these explicitly, but they're absolutely scanning for them subconsciously. When your resume doesn't make it clear which bucket you're playing in, the reader has to do some translation work, and they're not going to translate you up. They're going to translate it down. If you can't tell them how you led real business results, they're going to assume that you don't really know, and they'll pull your work down a level instead of raising you to the level that you actually execute at. And this is why strong experience can still get overlooked, not because it isn't real, but because it isn't legible from the outside. So the emotional relief I want to offer you if you feel like you're spiraling here is if your resume feels harder than it used to, if you found yourself thinking, I know I've done meaningful work, I just don't know how to say it anymore, that does not mean you're behind. It usually means you've reached a point where the old way of talking about your work no longer fits the level of responsibility you've been carrying. That's not a flaw. It's a transition point, and it's one a lot of capable professionals reach quietly, without language, without guidance, and often with unnecessary self-doubt. Once you name that, the problem really becomes workable. And if this is resonating with you, next week I'm hosting a live webinar called How to Build a Modern Resume That Gets Interviews. It's designed for exactly this moment. We'll walk through how hiring managers actually read resumes, how to shift from execution to business outcomes, and how to start translating your experience without inflating or forcing it. This isn't about templates or tricks. It's about learning how to represent the leadership you've already been carrying clearly and calmly. If you want to join, you can register through the links below. And if you're still unsure whether it's the right step, that's okay too. Just sit with this question for now. What did the business gain because my work existed? Take one role, one project within one role, one thing that you did, and really think through that, right? What did the business gain because my work existed? That question alone can change how everything else comes together. Thanks for spending time with me. I'll talk to you soon. For now, put down the popcorn and get in the game.